Welcome everybody to the Petaluma Museum. I'm Joe Noriel, the museum president. What an amazing exhibit. I mean, that doesn't say it all just from walking around these incredible artifacts and treasures. Just recently from the United States Congress, I'm going to read this to you quickly. A certificate of special congressional recognition presented to the Petaluma Historical Museum for Roma Crossing the Borders, celebrating over a century of Romani contributions in art, music, and culture, signed by Lynn Woolsey. So amazing. So it's wonderful to be recognized for this very important exhibit, and we certainly are trying to learn all we can about this very unique and precious culture. And none of this would be possible without two people, and I wanted to introduce them right now, who will introduce our distinguished speaker today. And that's Shani Rafani from the Voice of Roma. And Mark Tomlinson.
And I'll break you into the English accent that you may have to understand a little bit of later. Anyway, so thank you very much for coming, and let me introduce Professor Hancock, probably the world leading authority on the Roma, and a former representative of the United Nations. So, Professor Hancock, the floor is yours.
Thanks, and Ian, thank you so much for your amazing work, because hi everyone, my name is Shani, President of Voice of Roma, a non-profit organization. When I came in America in 1993, everybody was thinking about the gypsies as the wanderers, how beautiful it is to be free and wandering around. And then I was like, coming from Europe, we strongly prefer to be called Roma. And when I got to read Ian Hancock's literature, it really kind of made so much sense. And so all what you see around us, it's really thanks to this woman, to this man, who really introduced me to my own culture without knowing so much about, because there is not so much written record about the Romani history and culture. And then when I started to read Ian Hancock, it kind of made so much sense. So without further ado, here, Mr. Ian Hancock.
Well, Mark made that comment about paving the way for a British accent, but I've lived long enough in this country that I can switch back and forth. And I teach in Texas, and when I talk to my students, I talk like that. But when I go home to London, I talk like that. Shani referred to the popular image of the gypsy, and that's the theme of what I want to talk about today, because that's the image and that's the word that most people are familiar with. If you look at some of you, maybe not that old, but our parents, at least for some of you, before TV, before radio, when families would sit around the piano and sing songs to pass the time back in the early part of the last century, and would buy sheet music. And I run the Romani Archives and Documentation Center, which is a huge repository in Texas, and we have a huge collection of sheet music. And I didn't bring the originals, they're getting sort of fragile, but I've photocopied some to show you. And they paint a picture. This one, my little gypsy Wanda, because she wanders around. The little gypsy tea room. And look at the images that accompany the song sheets. In each case, well, here's she's holding a tambourine, that's part of the image. Here, a teacup with the tea leaves telling fortunes, and bandana and earrings, you usually get that. It's the gypsy in me, right? Bandana and earrings, and swag on a stick. Play to me, gypsy, the song I love. There's a wagon over here. I recall a gypsy woman, cowboy song. The gypsies are coming. Same general dress, appearance. This one's quite pretty. Razaza, here she has the tambourine and exotic looking. Another one, another tambourine, gypsy dream rose, bandana, earring, the works. I love you, gypsy. Wagon. I guess a guitar. Campfire. My little rose of Romani. And it goes on and on. We got loads of this. I just couldn't bring it all. We do have rose and we do have Wanda, but mostly the female image is just gypsy, not Wanda or Rose or Gladys or Mary, but gypsy. So it's an image. It represents something, not an actual individual woman, but a representation. Here's another one. It's just called the Gypsy, but this is actually from some lurid publication that I won't elaborate upon. In addition to these old sheet music scores, there are all sorts of books. This one's called the Gypsy Chronicles. These are all very recent. Gypsy Chronicles. And some of the blurb on the back, I'll read some of it. Upon each matrimonial bed that Cigani de Torres makes, he bestows a potent charm, one that guarantees a lifetime of pleasurable lovemaking. His wife, Gitana, is a matchmaker. The Gypsy Chronicles is a bedtime story for grown-ups. Okay, here's one, Gypsy Heart, Sasha White's book, Gypsy Heart. These are all really new, I mean, 1, 2 years old. The back of the book says, Ms. White has written an intensely sensual book with Gypsy Heart. Can a man bent on settling down convince a free-spirited woman that doesn't believe in happily ever after to risk her gypsy heart? Warning, this book contains explicit sex explained in graphic detail with contemporary language. Okay, Shiloh Walker, Touch of Gypsy Fire. Okay. The half-breed daughter of an elvish prince and a gypsy lady, she'd heard it said that a match between an angel and an incubus was better suited, until Arin, the powerful, sinfully seductive, I can't even read this stuff, it's crazy. Adventure, sex, romance, a touch of gypsy fire will cast its charmed spell over you. Okay, a couple more. Gypsies, Tramps and Heat. That, of course, is a play on that old Cher song, Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves. Gypsies, Tramps and the Heat, what does it tell us about this book? Get swept off your feet by a sinfully handsome movie star and a magic spell. Lose yourself in the dark eyes and crystal ball of a gypsy lover. This is quite an old one. This is Paprika, the gypsy trollop. Notice what she looks like. A blonde, white lady. But she is a trollop. And what does it say about this? All the wild passions and secret earthy customs of the gypsy are faithfully delineated in this colorful masterpiece. It goes on. Before she was 15, her tribesmen were fighting over her as dogs fight for a bone. Okay, I think I've made a point here. But what I want to do is contrast this sort of stuff with books, other books that have come out in the past 5-10 years, such as The Romani Voice in World Politics, Roma in Europe from Social Exclusion to Active Participation, The Romani Movement, Minority Politics and Ethnic Mobilization, Human rights of Roma and travelers in Europe, minority rights and protection in international law, the Roma of Europe, Romani politics in contemporary Europe, poverty, ethnic mobilization, and the neoliberal order. And again, I've only brought a few because of space and weight. But look how different. I'm going to put these down.
And don't forget this one. We are the Romani people by Ian Hancock.
Well, actually, since we're touting my book, there's one even more recent called Danger, Educated Gypsy. But why is there this huge discrepancy between gypsy, in quotes, and Roma? It's as though there are two completely different personas, and in fact there are. And the gypsy image is so deeply entrenched in the popular perception that it completely blocks our effort, first of all, to be taken seriously as an actual people, but secondly, to have our real identity recognized and respected. So what I want to do is talk a bit about why there are these two identities. Where could it possibly come from? And then say something about who we actually are and where we actually originate. I'll give you a bit of a background. In fact, I'll tell you where we come from first, and then lead into how it took two different directions. Roma, which is the word I'm going to use, showed up in Europe in the early middle part of the Middle Ages, maybe around 1300. And they had come in across from Asia, from that part of the world called Anatolia, which is mostly Turkey today, crossed over into Europe, and the Europeans really weren't sure who these people were. We're talking about a few centuries ago. So those people, first of all, looked a lot more different from what they look like today, darker, more Eastern looking, speaking a language spoken nowhere in Europe, an Asian language. And the Europeans, we know that Europeans were curious and they asked these people, who are you, where are you from? And some of them were able to say actually where they were from, but that never became part of the general understanding. And it became lost. Who these people were became lost, not only in the European memory, but in the Romani memory too. And that's important because our ancestors themselves forgot where they come from. Once that happens, of course, outsiders can come up with any suggestion, all sorts of guesses, and there were all sorts of really bizarre guesses that they were. A popular one was that Roma were Jews who had gone underground during the medieval pogroms and had, because they'd been in the caves and in the forests, had become kind of ingrained with dirt, and that's why they were dark-skinned. Another one was that they had come actually from out of the hollow earth, inside the hollow earth. Another one was that they had come down from the moon. A lot of these very peculiar suggestions. And the name, we call ourselves Roma, but it's only now that we're being called Roma from outside. The names that were applied to us are the ones that have stuck. And there were two of these in particular. One was Egyptian, and that is given a Gypsian, gypsy, that's where gypsy comes from, a gitano, gitano in Spanish, and so on. Another one was Atsingani. This was a name, it's a Greek word from the Byzantine period, the Anatolian period, which means roughly don't touch. And it was a nickname given to a different group of people, a Christian sect called the Manichaeans, who they were a very important Christian group at one time. They kind of disappeared over time, but they played a big part in the establishment of Christianity, but they were very exclusive. Exclusive in the sense of excluding non-members. And so they got this nickname of the don't touch people. You can't get friendly with them, you know. And Romani behavior is like that. I'll explain it as we go. But in our culture, we don't encourage too much intimacy with non-Romani people. And since that was observed, that same nickname of the hands-off people, the don't touch people, stuck. And Atsingani has given Tsigan, Tsigoina, and a whole host of other labels, which actually are not the right words. We are Roma. The revelation that we had come from Asia came sort of by accident in the middle of the 18th century. And this is the story. This at least is the conventional story, which goes that in 1760, a Hungarian theology student who attended the University of Leiden was one day in the students' common room, and there were 3 students from India. And his family, this is back in the time of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and his family was quite wealthy and employed a lot of Roma as laborers. And he would hang out with them in a town, it was called Rob back then. Now it's called Győr. And he had picked up some of our language from those people. And on this particular day, he's at the university in the Students' Union, and he sits down with these 3 students from India. Because back then, and even until now, the University of Leiden has an exchange agreement with India. 3 Indian students come to Holland, and 3 Dutch students go to India to complete their graduate studies. So he sits with these Indian students, and they're discussing something or other,